On the day of our graduation party, during a game voting session, my girlfriend surprisingly wrote down Makoto's name on the crush vote. She thought it was an anonymous vote. Little did she know. Not only could I instantly recognize her handwriting, but I could also clearly see her crush level, a value that was supposed to represent how much she liked someone. And to my surprise, the value I had accumulated after pursuing her for 6 whole years was lower than the level she gave Makoto the first time they met. At that thought, I flipped the table, said I'm done, and quit the game. I wasn't going to play this chase game anymore. It took 6 years of effort to win her heart, but it only took a moment for her to abandon me. Chapter 1. During the game at the party, Makoto's crush vote wasn't doing too well and was about to lose to me. The classmate hosting the game, feeling bad for him, gave him one last chance to rally votes. The host said, "So far, we've only received 13 votes, and there are 19 girls in total, meaning 6 haven't voted yet." Makoto's gaze swept the room. It finally landed on Willow, the campus goddess sitting opposite him. With an implied plea, he said, "Hey, come on, ladies. Don't be so biased. I know George is the student council president and he has a lot of fans, but please don't make me lose this badly." Sitting next to my girlfriend, Willow, I clearly saw her crush level rise again, plus 2%. Willow lightly pressed her lips together, lowered her gaze, stood up, and with a subtle smile on her face, she walked over to another table where pens and paper were placed. She moved. The 5 other girls she was closest to followed her without hesitation. 6 votes mixed together, then handed over to the host. The host glanced at them, a little surprised. He whistled, saying, "I didn't expect this." Makoto managed to pull off a dramatic comeback. He laid out the 6 votes on the table, a mischievous grin on his face. He said, "Makoto's vote rally was too successful, 5 votes, totaling 10 votes. Meanwhile, our dear president only got 1 vote, losing by just 1. What a pity." Others immediately joined in with teasing remarks. "Hey, George's vote, no doubt, was from our goddess Willow." But someone else voiced a doubt. "How can the goddess handwriting be so ugly? It looks like a turtle crawling across the page." That's when everyone noticed the clues but chose not to speak out loud. They all subtly shifted the conversation to something else, and the atmosphere quickly returned to its lively state. Only I remained, sitting quietly at my seat. Willow had been my girlfriend for 4 years, so I knew her handwriting all too well. Out of the 5 crush votes with Makoto's name on them, 1 stood out. Its elegant, delicate handwriting was definitely Willow's. I took out her crush vote and placed it in the most prominent spot. With a smile, I said, "No need to guess. She voted for Makoto." Chapter 2. The entire room fell silent. Willow's face slightly changed, but she didn't deny it. Her friends, who had voted with her, immediately spoke up, saying, "President, don't mind it. It was my idea." I felt a little sorry for Makoto, so I nudged Willow to vote for him. "It's just a game, all in good fun." The others quickly chimed in. "Exactly. Who here doesn't know how much Willow, our campus goddess, likes our president George? George and Willow are the perfect couple. Awarded Best Campus Couple for 3 years in a row. Can't compete with that." Meanwhile, Makoto was grinning widely. He cheerfully said, "Thanks to all the beautiful ladies for their support. I know I won because I played the voting game, but if our president also rallied votes, I'd be out of the running." Understanding and reasonable, everyone applauded. He turned his head toward me and continued, "George, you're not mad, are you? After all, Willow is your girlfriend. If this bothers you, I can give you my vote back." I couldn't help but laugh. "No need. If the vote is yours, it's yours." I thought to myself, she gave him the vote, and she also gave him herself. The loser has to drink an amount of alcohol equal to the difference in votes. I slowly lined up 10 glasses in a row. I chose the strongest whiskey, then began to pour. Everyone stared, stunned. They all started to advise me, saying it was just a playful punishment and that I didn't need to take it so seriously. With so much alcohol going down quickly, even with my good drinking tolerance, I wouldn't be able to handle it. Of course, I couldn't handle it. I had a serious stomach condition. Willow knew this, and with a confused expression, she came over to take the bottle from my hands. I dodged and continued, pouring until the glasses were full. She said, "George, you can't drink this much." She couldn't understand why I suddenly wasn't cooperating. I looked at her and whispered near her ear, "Didn't you already think about this moment when you voted for Makoto?" When she voted, I saw her whisper something to her group of friends. Then, 5 votes went to Makoto. Just 1 extra vote, enough for him to beat me. Seeing Willow speechless, I continued, "You don't want your good friend to suffer with the drinks, but I'm your boyfriend, so it's fine for me to drink, right?" I began chugging the alcohol, 1 glass after another, like swallowing plain water. Willow didn't stop me anymore, though she was upset that I was making such a big deal over a single vote. The others, Sensing the subtle tension between us, quieted down. After finishing the 10 glasses, I wasn't drunk. On the way back, I didn't wait for Willow and took a cab by myself. I was fine on the way home, but as soon as I entered, I didn't even take off my shoes, just rushed straight to the bathroom and started throwing up. The sharp, unpleasant smell quickly filled the small space. My stomach felt like it was on fire, and I had to hold on to the sink to avoid collapsing. My head was spinning. Staring at my disheveled reflection in the mirror, I suddenly felt my shoulders shake uncontrollably. By the time the dinner ended, I checked the system. Willow's crush level for Makoto had reached 89%. For me, it was a pitiful 45%. It had been stuck there for half a year. Ever since she met Makoto, it hadn't increased at all. I met Willow back when we were in high school. On her first day at the new school, I fell for her at first sight. No one knew, but I could see the crush level of anyone I liked. Whether it was for me or someone else, as long as she had feelings for someone, I could see it. And Willow's crush bar had always been 0, meaning she didn't like anyone. I was overjoyed and began my long pursuit. By the summer of our senior year, she finally agreed to be my girlfriend. At that time, her crush level for me was only a pitiful 28%, but I didn't mind. The first step was a victory, and the rest of our journey still lay ahead. She was good at her studies, and if I wanted to catch up, I had to study tirelessly, hanging myself by the beam and pricking my neck with a needle, burning the midnight oil. During the many moments of exhaustion and struggle, I never once thought about giving up. I gritted my teeth and pushed through. Looking back on these years, I had accompanied her from high school to college. She became the campus goddess, radiant and captivating. I, too, gritted my teeth and ran for student council president. I focused all my attention on her, vowing to be the most solid support by her side. Whenever the pressure of school work became overwhelming, we would cuddle together, encouraging each other and dreaming about the future. She said, "George, when you graduate and make a lot of money, you have to buy me endless beautiful clothes and take me to see the sea in Bali and the aurora in Iceland." Willow leaned against me, her voice ethereal and sweet. She said she wanted to travel and marry me, to see all the beautiful places so that when we were old, we would have many memories. I felt so happy knowing that she had placed me in her future plans. At that moment, I believed her. Even though her crush level for me was only 45%, not even halfway, I told myself it was fine. All these years, Willow had only ever had feelings for me. She had never shown any interest in other guys. Maybe she was just a calm, reserved person. Chapter 3. No matter how tough an iceberg is, it eventually starts to melt towards me. At that moment, I thought that was enough. I was content. But the next day at a friend's gathering, Willow met Makoto for the first time. Her crush index shot past 50%. It made the 6 years I spent pursuing her feel like a joke. I was sitting right next to her, hearing the erratic thudding of her heart. For a moment, I thought I was imagining things, but when Makoto went to the bathroom and didn't return for a while, a classmate came running back, panic in his voice, saying he had been surrounded by bar thugs and was getting into a fight. That was the first time I saw Willow so anxious. Without a word, she rushed out of the private room, her eyes red with worry. She pleaded with me to help, asking me to fight in Makoto's place. It was the first time I was caught in a group brawl. After the fight, I was covered in bruises and wounds, but the pain in my body was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. Willow was so upset. It made me finally realize that the ridiculous rise in her crush index wasn't a hallucination. Later, I asked her why she was so upset. Her eyes flashed with panic for a moment, but she quickly regained composure and explained, "Those thugs are the worst. Not only do they bully people, but they often harass the female students." "What if they harassed me, George? Could you bear it if someone hurt me?" I forced a smile. That glaring 50% crush index increased by another 5% when I saw Makoto's forehead bleeding. That night, everyone was drunk. I lay on the couch, clutching my bruised stomach, trying to endure. Willow thought I hadn't seen anything. She asked a waiter for alcohol wipes and gently cleaned and bandaged Makoto's wound. Even though I was hurt worse, she completely ignored me. All her tenderness and concern were given to another man, and it didn't stop there. Countless times, because of Makoto, Willow canceled our plans. Even when I was sick and needed medicine for my stomach, she was called away by Makoto, leaving me to suffer alone. I watched helplessly as her crush index for him soared. It wasn't like I hadn't argued with her, but she didn't care. She always said it was just a friendship with someone she shared similar interests with, and I should be magnanimous, even though I convinced myself not to care. I couldn't blind my eyes to the glaring comparison between the two numbers. It hurt constantly. Over time, I became accustomed to the pain. It was like tonight, watching her write Makoto's name on the crush index ballot without hesitation. I wasn't surprised anymore. I had been magnanimous until the very end, and now, I was ready to give both my heart and my love away. Drinking too much at night never felt good. Finally lying down, I had a series of dreams. In those dreams, all I could see was the countless ways I had given to Willow over the years. There had been sweet moments, too. Back then, I really felt like I was soaring with happiness, but in the blink of an eye, I fell straight down. I had spent days and nights staring at that number. Every time Makoto's index increased by 1, mine would dull by the same amount. The pain often made me question, why did I fall for Willow? Was it because, on our first meeting, she had been threatened by an older student and had clung to me, looking so pitiful? Or was it simply because I was obsessed with her pure, captivating face? To this day, I couldn't say for sure. After all these years of entanglement, I was truly exhausted. I got out of bed, feeling the fire burn in my stomach. I swallowed a few pills, hoping to ease the pain, and took out my phone to order takeout. That's when I noticed several missed calls, all from my childhood friend. He had also sent several urgent messages, written in a rush. George, you need to check the school forum. George, reply. How can Willow like you and do this? Is it because of Makoto, that bastard? I had a bad feeling and clicked open the campus forum. The first trending post I saw had the title, Best Campus Couple Suspected to be Breaking Up. Frowning, I clicked on the post. The original poster was probably someone who had attended the gathering last night. The content revealed that Willow, our campus goddess, had written down Makoto's name on the crush index ballot instead of her boyfriend, George, the student council president. What's worse, the student council president had exposed Willow's ballot publicly. In the end, he lost and downed 10 shots of alcohol, taking a cab home alone. A picture was attached to the post. It was of my back, as I was about to enter a taxi, looking dejected and lost. On the other side of the picture, Willow was supporting a drunk Makoto, helping him walk with an affectionate smile. I stared at the picture for a long time, bitterly smiling. So that was why she hadn't called me at all last night. The comment section was full of heated discussions. Most of them were sympathizing with me. The president's situation is too tragic. He's been cheated on right in front of his eyes, and by someone worse than him in every way. Who is this Makoto? How could he make Willow abandon George? Please. It's George. But there were also some comments like, what's wrong with George? I've never liked the student council president. Anyone who runs for that position can't be any good. Someone retorted, what's wrong with George? Don't make baseless accusations. George as president is nothing like the other guys. He doesn't abuse his power and always stands up for the students. I used to ship George and Willow so hard. Now look, it's all fallen apart. Chapter 4. I scrolled down to the most recent reply, posted just a minute ago. It read, why do outsiders say so much? Maybe they've already broken up. How can it be considered trashy if the woman finds a new boyfriend? Ito-san isn't exactly stealing someone's girlfriend. Are you saying George and Willow can't break up just because they're dating? That's too overbearing. I thought for a moment and replied under his post, we broke up last night. I then logged off the forum and ordered some takeout. But while I was waiting, a sudden, sharp pain struck my stomach. No matter how many pills I took, nothing worked. It only got worse, and my vision started to blur. I took a deep breath and immediately called for an ambulance, dialing 120. Then, I lost consciousness. The smell of antiseptic flooded my nostrils. I struggled to open my eyes and found myself in a hospital room. George, how are you? Is your stomach still bothering you? I turned toward the voice. It was Willow. She seemed to have gone days without sleep. Her fair, delicate face marred by dark circles under her eyes. She looked genuinely relieved when she saw that I had woken up. I tried to speak, but my throat felt sore. I coughed a few times. Willow immediately handed me a glass of water. She said, drink it. The doctor said you'd be thirsty once you woke up, so I kept it warm for you. I hesitated and didn't take the water. She asked, is there anything else bothering you? Should I call the doctor? She turned to leave. I asked, is this interesting to you? Hearing my hoarse voice, Willow stopped in her tracks and turned around, instantly understanding the meaning behind my words. She sighed helplessly, her eyes full of deep exhaustion. She said, George, it's just a piece of paper. Why are you being so harsh? You're being petty. It was the same tone again. As long as Makoto wasn't involved, Willow was always sweet and considerate, doing everything a perfect girlfriend would do. All the guys at school must have envied me. But every time Makoto was mentioned, there was always this bitterness. I was equally exhausted. My stomach, which had just begun to feel a little better, flared up again in pain. I said, Willow, I'm not interested in playing games with you. I'm not emotional right now. I've never been as clear-headed as I am now. That piece of paper doesn't mean anything to me. She asked, then what is it about? Willow furrowed her brows, completely puzzled. I said, the truth is, you don't even realize that you don't like me. You don't admit it, but your heart, and your actions, have already given me the answer. Strangely, The fact that I had been unwilling to face this truth for so long didn't seem so hard to accept now. Some things really needed to hit rock bottom to be accepted. Willow tried to argue but paused, opening her mouth only to find she had no words. She seemed a little embarrassed. She said, "George, I know I've done things in the past that made you misunderstand me. I'm sorry. I promise it won't happen again." Before she could finish her sentence, her phone rang. Willow glanced at the screen, hesitated for a few seconds, then reluctantly answered the call. She said, "It's a friend. I'll step out and talk to him so I don't disturb you." I nodded indifferently. I already knew that ringtone. It was Makoto's. I watched her walk out of the room. Through the transparent glass, I saw her bright eyes and playful expression as she chatted with him. She seemed to be acting coquettishly. Then, she glanced at me, hesitated for a moment, and quickly left. For some reason, I felt a strange sense of relief. This relationship was over. I picked up my phone out of boredom. There were several unread messages from my friends. He had sent me a few screenshots. He asked, "George, did you really break up? The forum is going crazy. Someone dug up your account and saw your comment under the post." The screenshots clearly displayed the bold text, "We broke up last night," with over 99 replies. The following screenshots showed heated discussions on the forum. One alumnus commented, "No way, they really broke up. Even the most perfect campus couples eventually split after graduation. At least it balances things out for me." But the word "last night," that means they broke up because of Makoto. Right. The student council president got cheated on. What's so special about this Ito guy? Some people were also questioning me. This is just one side of the story from Wong. The goddess hasn't said anything yet. Exactly. What if she was already planning to break up but didn't want to lose face and made up the story? Poor Ito. That would be unfair to him. Everyone was speculating wildly. I couldn't help but read through all the comments with interest. Just then, the door to my room was knocked on. George. It was my childhood friend, storming in with a furious expression. Seeing my pale face, he cursed and said, "Damn, I never expected this." Willow seemed fine, but it's all talk in front of you and something completely different behind your back. Did she really cheat with Makoto? Did I call it or what? He gritted his teeth and added, "Trashy woman, pathetic dog, perfect match, lock it up." He asked how I was feeling and if I needed anything. I said I didn't want to stay in the hospital or go home alone. He replied, "No problem. Come crash at my place. It's perfect. You'll be far away from that trashy woman." Chapter 5. Before I had the chance to refuse, my childhood friend had already hurriedly packed me and my things and moved me to his place to stay. Seeing me act so stiff, he joked, "Don't worry, it's just me and my wandering little aunt at home. There's no one else." So, I settled in temporarily and began to think about my next steps. Before graduation, I had applied to several big companies I admired. Some had responded with offers, others had rejected me. The one I most wanted to join, Golden Dragon Technology, hadn't given any reply. If this had happened a few days ago, I would have been anxious and restless, but now, I honestly didn't care anymore, because Willow had already confirmed that she was going to Golden Dragon, and I only applied there because of her. That night, my friend called me while he was away on a business trip. "George, you're still awake, right? This is urgent. My little aunt got drunk and is stuck in VIP room No. 2 at Miss Bar. She can't get away. Can you help bring her home?" I was confused, but I followed his instructions, changed clothes, and went to the room where his little aunt was. The scene inside startled me. There were a few women scattered around, but the rest of the room was filled with men, blonde-haired, non-mainstream types. Chaos everywhere. They were all crowding around one woman who was undeniably stunning. My friend's exact words were, "My little aunt is easy to recognize. Just grab the most beautiful one and bring her home." One woman noticed me entering and asked, "Hey, handsome, looking for someone? Want to get to know me?" I calmly scanned the room, then walked straight over to the woman slumped drunkenly on the couch, surrounded by men. I said, "Sweetheart, how dare you cheat on me? Come home with me right now." I forcibly pushed the men aside, shouting, "Stop staring. We just got married yesterday." While they were all stunned and covering their mouths, I seized the opportunity to grab the drunk woman and rush out of the room. Just as I was about to leave, the small hand I was holding suddenly turned the tables, and she pulled me back. I was caught off guard, spun around, and found myself face to face with the woman I was trying to drag out. Her eyes were hazy, as if glazed over with a layer of water. She still struggled to focus on me, her breath sweet like orchids. She whispered, "Husband." It wasn't easy to drag a drunken person home. I stuffed her into her own room, cleaned up, and by the time I was done, it was already well past midnight. My stomach began aching again, and I curled up on the couch, planning to rest before heading to the shower. But before I knew it, I had fallen fast asleep. I woke up to an itching sensation on my face, like there was a mosquito. Irritated, I raised my hand to swat it away, but unexpectedly, My fingers brushed across a soft set of lips. I instantly woke up. When I opened my eyes, I was met with a breathtaking face, with lipstick smeared on her lips where my fingers had accidentally grazed. The scene was incredibly intimate. I stared at it blankly for a few seconds before realizing what had happened. I stammered. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." I quickly apologized, but she seemed to still be half drunk, her eyes rimmed with red, looking dangerously seductive. The only light in the living room was from a few dim lamps. His little aunt was sitting on the couch in a disheveled long skirt, her long hair cascading around her, eyeing me intently. I couldn't decipher her intentions and decided to wait for her to speak, but the next second, I regretted it. Who knew what kind of drunken frenzy she was having? She suddenly lifted herself and sat down on my lap, two pale, smooth arms wrapped around my neck. She leaned down, bringing her face close to mine. In an instant, we were nose to nose, the distance so close it was suffocating. I swallowed hard. The woman in my arms was soft as though she had no bones, and I didn't know where to place my hands. Terrified of touching something inappropriate, I said, "Little aunt, let me introduce myself first. I'm George, David's childhood friend. I'm just staying here for now." The atmosphere was eerily silent, so I had to break it again. I forced myself to speak. David asked me to bring you back. The marriage was a lie. I didn't mean to take advantage of you." She seemed to either not hear or not care. Suddenly, she touched her red lips with a pout and said in a tone that was oddly plaintive, "My lipstick is ruined." I was dumbfounded. Then, her gaze locked on my lips, intense and burning. Her breathing became heavy. It was as though she hadn't eaten for days and had finally set her eyes on her prey, determined to have it. I sensed that this was going wrong. I tried to pull her off me, but I was too slow. In an instant, a kiss full of teasing meaning made my heart stop. There I was, sitting with a seductively beautiful woman on my lap, who was doing everything she could to tempt me into a mistake. I was a normal man. For a moment, I even thought to myself, why not? Willow's already cheated on me. What's one night with another woman? But morals kept me clear-headed. I was only afraid of hurting her as I tried to push her away, so I couldn't forcefully reject her. To catch my breath, I began to passively adjust my pace to match hers, trying to deal with the unexpected assault. The air was thick with alcohol, mixed with the sweet scent of her skin. My mind felt like it was turning into a thick paste. I had no idea how long it lasted, but when the strange kiss finally ended, a tingling sensation lingered on my lips. Afraid I might really lose control, I just wanted to leave, but she seemed unwilling to end it. Reluctantly, she tried to kiss me again, murmuring, "I want more." She clung to me, her fingers like translucent pearls on my shoulder, but I had no intention of enjoying this. I slapped her hand off and, as she winced in pain, seized the chance to escape to my room. The sound of the door locking made me breathe a sigh of relief. Trying to calm my racing heart, I thought about calling David via video, but I didn't want him to see my swollen lips, so I sent him a voice message instead. "Hey, quick question. Does your little aunt often get like this when she drinks?" David was a night owl, so he hadn't gone to bed. He replied, "No, she's usually quiet when drunk. She's never acted like that before." "Why? What happened?" I quickly replied that it was nothing. The next morning, I expected some awkwardness, but to my surprise, she was nowhere to be seen. I let out a sigh of relief and, just as I was thinking about moving back home, I received an email. Golden Dragon Technology Entry Notice, Chapter 6. After hesitating for only a moment, I made up my mind. Among the companies I had applied to, Golden Dragon Technology offered the highest salary. As for Willow, since it was over, I would let go completely. On my first day at work, I carefully dressed in a suit. HR led me to meet the big boss. On the way, they explained that as a special assistant, I was to constantly pay attention to the boss's needs and be at her service. I smiled on the outside, but silently mocked the idea of constantly running around like a workhorse. I knocked on the door a few times, and HR pushed it open. I followed them in. HR said, "Miss Anna, your new assistant is here. George, come in. Your workstation is over there." After a brief handover, HR left us to our tasks. I sat at my desk, confused, staring at the woman lying on the client's sofa, facing inward, fast asleep. She was covered with a blanket, so I couldn't see her face clearly. Was this really the famous female CEO of Golden Dragon Technology, Anna? With no work to do, I was lost in thought when my phone suddenly rang. I hung up one call, but another came through immediately. It was Willow. Seeing that I wasn't answering, she switched to texting. She wrote, "George, where are you? Let's meet. What did your reply on the forum mean? When did we break up? George, please don't ignore me. Tomorrow's your birthday. You've always celebrated it for me. This time, I want to give you a surprise. Can we meet tonight and talk here?" She included a location, a restaurant by Central Park, where we had our first date. I sneered and decisively blocked her number. Raising my eyes, I saw a very familiar face. The woman who had been sleeping on the couch had apparently been woken by the sound of my phone ringing. She lazily sat up. Wait, was that her? My pupils contracted, unsure if I was seeing things, but when I saw her soft red lips, slightly swollen from the night before, I knew I wasn't mistaken. She looked like she didn't remember anything from last night, but she clearly recognized me. She said, "You haven't changed much since high school." I was puzzled. It wasn't until she reminded me that I remembered. Every summer during high school, I would visit my childhood friend's house for a few days. His parents were abroad, and he lived with his little aunt, but his little aunt was always coming and going, so I never saw her and had no idea how she recognized me. After a moment of thinking about it, I recalled the intense kiss from last night, and the whole thing felt off. But seeing Anna so businesslike, giving task instructions with her usual precision, I gradually calmed down. At the end of the workday, she told me she had an event to take me to. Her lips, once marked with a kiss, were now clear, and her stunning face was paired with a sleek black dress. As we drove, an unfamiliar number texted me, asking where I was. I didn't need to think to know who it was. The car stopped, and as I looked at the restaurant sign, I realized how coincidental this was. She asked, "Is something wrong?" Anna, sitting in the passenger seat, noticed I was frozen and raised an eyebrow slightly. I forced a smile, replying, "No." I opened the car door for her like a gentleman. To my surprise, Anna immediately hooked her arm around mine, and I stiffened. We walked into the restaurant, and I kept my head down, trying to avoid any attention, but it didn't work. As we turned to head upstairs to the private room, a familiar voice called out from behind, "George, you actually came." It was Willow, smiling as she quickly approached, but when she saw Anna, her smile faded. Who is she? It had been almost half a month since I woke up in the hospital, and I hadn't seen Willow in all that time. She was just as dazzling as before, her eyes and smile full of confidence and control, as if I could never escape her grasp. She was the type of woman who believed that no matter how cold we got with each other, as soon as she acted sweet or spoiled, I would always go back to being her simp. But this time, that Cold War didn't include flirting with other women. For Willow, that was absolute betrayal. So her expression turned darker. While we stood there, Anna seemed completely detached. She even laughed lightly, as if watching a spectacle. The kiss from last night suddenly flashed in my mind, the details of our lips and tongues entwined. A wave of frustration surged within me, and I couldn't help but want to express it. "George, who is she?" Willow asked again, this time with clear anger in her voice. I smiled at her, deliberately acting very familiar, and stretched my arm around Anna, pulling her into my embrace. I proudly declared, "Of course, she's my new girlfriend." Even Anna froze for a moment. Willow, as expected, was furious. She bit her lip and said, "George, how dare you do this to me?" Willow and I were each other's first love. She had genuinely wanted to be with me for life. After all, no one loved her more than I did, and the 6 years we spent together made Willow constantly believe this. She had even prepared a surprise for my birthday tomorrow. She was ready to give herself to me on that day, but now, right in front of her, I was moving on and seeing another woman. I replied, "As far as I'm concerned, we've already broken up, so why wouldn't I dare?" I watched as Willow's face turned pale with rage, and I felt a sense of satisfaction I hadn't experienced in a long time. I instinctively reached for the system to check her emotional index, hoping it had fallen to rock bottom. That would be perfect. The dog-like index should be wiped out entirely. I never wanted to see it again, but the next second, I froze. There was nothing. I stared intently at Willow, checking several times, but I still couldn't see any trace of her emotional index. Her heartbeat index had disappeared completely. No matter if it was for me or for Makoto, I couldn't see it anymore. Without that special measure, Willow now felt like any other passing stranger in my eyes. My mind raced. According to the system, I could only see the emotional index of someone I loved. If it was suddenly gone, that meant Willow was truly in the past for me. I no longer loved her. Realizing this, a complex feeling settled in my chest. Without realizing it, I tightened my arm around Anna and climbed the stairs in a daze. Anna asked, "How long do you plan to take advantage of me?" Chapter 7. Anna's sultry voice echoed in my ears, snapping me back to reality. I realized, to my surprise, that I had completely ignored Willow and was still holding onto my childhood friend's little aunt, while my boss had already made her way upstairs. When I turned around, Willow was no longer in sight. Well, she was a proud person. After being humiliated in front of me, she was probably off to complain to Makoto, crying about what I did to her. I was about to pull my arm away, but Anna tightened her grip around my arm and sighed, making it impossible for me to withdraw the hand I had placed around her slim waist. Her tone, ambiguous and teasing, reached my ears. "Tonight, you're my date. After the drinking session, both Anna and I were a little tipsy. We had a designated driver for the ride home. Although the back seat was spacious, it couldn't quite make up for the woman beside me, who kept sprawling around in an unrestrained manner. It made the air feel thick, as if I could hardly breathe. Though she wasn't much older than me, she was my childhood friend's little aunt. That familial connection put a strange weight on everything, and I felt that being involved with her was somehow inappropriate. So, I tried to keep my distance, afraid she might start acting out due to the alcohol. Fortunately, we made it without incident. When we arrived at my childhood friend's house, the designated driver got out and left, but the woman resting her head on my shoulder remained still, most likely asleep. I leaned over and shook her shoulder gently. Hey, we're home, Anna. I was interrupted as Anna slowly lifted her eyelids and looked at me. Why aren't you calling me little aunt anymore? I froze, my pupils dilating. Only when she was drunk last night did I call her little aunt. So, she remembered that kiss. At that moment, Anna's eyes were wide awake, and her gaze was sharp. In the cramped space of the car, she toyed with a lock of her hair, twirling it around her fingers, making me feel as if my soul was drifting away. Fearing that something inappropriate might happen again, I hurriedly got out of the car. Back at my childhood friend's house, I decided to speak up to Anna. Little aunt, I've been bothering you for so many days. I'll move out tomorrow after work. My gut feeling told me that this woman was dangerous. Aside from work, I should stay as far away from her as possible. Anna didn't say anything. She just gave me a meaningful smile before heading to her room. The next day, I woke up and found that I was the only one left in the house. I took a taxi to the office and was about to head in when someone called my name. George. I turned around and saw Willow in a white dress, standing next to Makoto, who was dressed in a sharp suit, looking very presentable. Willow said, I didn't expect you to actually join Golden Dragon. Willow sounded somewhat surprised, but then smiled and added, I know you did this for me. Getting into this place must have been difficult. Thank you. I kept my expression unchanged. It has nothing to do with you. Makoto spoke up. George, I heard that you and YY are having problems because of me. Makoto grabbed my arm apologetically and said, I'm really sorry. I didn't think that ticket would cause such a huge argument between you two. Makoto called her YY. They had become so familiar in such a short time. It seemed like things were moving fast between them. I brushed his hand off and said, Mr. Ito, it's not a matter of us having problems. We've already broken up. I emphasized the point. So, don't waste any more time on me. When we see each other from now on, just pretend we don't know each other. With that, I walked into the building. As I passed them, I noticed their faces had changed slightly. It felt refreshing. Makoto naturally joined the tech department, and Willow took up a position in the editorial department. At lunchtime, after placing my utensils down, I was about to return to my workstation when Willow suddenly pulled me into the break room. She said, Today is your birthday, I asked. So, I looked at her with amusement. Apparently, unable to bear my gaze, Willow looked irritated. She said, George, I can't accept the breakup. She pulled out a small package from her pocket and, looking somewhat shy, handed it to me. She said, Today, I intend to give myself to you. You've always been suspicious of my relationship with Makoto, so I want to give myself to you, to clear up your doubts. She added, Last night's incident with that woman, I'll let it slide. But after today, you're mine. Her words came with a clear warning. I won't tolerate this kind of thing again. Seeing her so serious, I couldn't help but laugh. I smiled and said, Willow, it's only today that I've realized how blind love can make people. Without love, what once seemed like a dream now felt tasteless, even a little annoying. What a waste of my lunch break. Hearing the sarcasm in my tone, Willow's face turned cold. I didn't have the time to listen to her nonsense, so I turned and left the break room. When I returned to my desk, Anna casually asked, It's your birthday today. I was taken aback. I wasn't sure what she meant, but she didn't say anything more after that. She just asked like it was a random question. The whole afternoon passed with no other mention of it. Until after work, I told her I was moving out, but she insisted that I drive her to a candlelight dinner. Halfway through, the waiter brought out a cake, along with a bouquet of roses, which I was supposed to hand to the woman. It was clearly a romantic restaurant for couples. The dim lighting and the intimate atmosphere felt completely out of place for us now. Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore and spoke up. Anna, you're 5 years older than me, and you're my childhood friend's elder. Anna slowly put down her cutlery, her eyes fixed on me. I felt my lips dry up. I said, So, this isn't really appropriate. We were both adults, and though Anna sometimes looked at me in a way I couldn't misunderstand, it still felt strange. Even though we had only just met a few days ago, her attitude seemed to indicate that she had feelings for me all along. She asked, Then what is appropriate? You and Willow. For some reason, Anna's question felt more like an attack. her beautiful eyes carrying a hint of sorrow. She smiled and said, 6 years by her side, and I still can't compare to her little lover's words. I was speechless. I felt a mix of anger and embarrassment, but I was also surprised. How did she know this? Chapter 8, she said. George. Anna sighed softly, walking up to my side and gazing at me gently. Now that they both work under me, don't you care about making them upset? Have you forgotten how perfectly we kissed when we were together? Her palm faced down and landed in front of me. At that moment, I felt as if I saw some unexplainable value on her. 100%. Was it a heart flutter index? But for whom? I stared at it, confused, only for it to vanish in an instant, as though it were a hallucination. I snapped back to reality, my focus narrowing on the hand in front of me. Without thinking, my hand closed around it tightly. After that day, Anna became my new girlfriend. When my childhood friend, David, found out, he shouted with excitement over the phone, I knew it. My so-called little aunt was already plotting against you. I asked him what he meant. David told me that he had once seen a picture of me in Anna's study. It was from when I first entered university, wearing camouflage during military training. My face looked youthful and refined, my posture straight. The angle of the photo, it was obvious it was taken secretly. Apparently, she had a lot of photos like that. David paused for a moment before continuing. I always thought about this, and I guess she must have taken a liking to you when you stayed at my house during high school. Though, it's not surprising. Back then, you had so many fangirls, but for some strange reason, you only liked Willow, he added, and when you were in the hospital, it was her who asked me to take you home. David's tone lowered. I'm sorry, bro, but little aunt gave me too much. The call ended, and I felt a soft body press against me from behind. Her breath was intoxicating. She asked, do you regret it? I shook my head. Once a decision was made, there was no turning back. If I wanted to get out of a wrong relationship, the best way was to immediately dive into another one. And frankly, I was very interested in Anna. At the company's welcome party, in front of all the employees, she held my hand and sat down beside me. Everyone froze in place. Makoto couldn't hide his frustration, his fingers gripping the cup so tightly it looked like they were about to snap. As for Willow, while I was heading to the bathroom, she stopped me on my way back. Her eyes seemed to burn with anger as she asked, George, how could you be with that woman? Are you doing this to get back at me? I couldn't help but laugh at her. I crossed my arms over my chest and answered, don't flatter yourself. You think I'd do that just because of you? She asked. Then why? Willow's expression suddenly changed to one of fury. She asked, do you really like her? I replied, why else? I didn't have the habit of staying in a failed relationship. Once disappointment had piled up, it was time to walk away. If there was a better, more suitable woman, why not like her? When she realized I was serious, Willow's jealousy flared up, and she said, George, you can't like anyone else. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and almost threw a tantrum. I won't allow you to like anyone else. Her childish words only made me laugh. I said, you're over there being all sweet with Makoto, and now you're trying to control me. Willow, you're really good at playing the double standard. Hearing me mention Makoto, Willow seemed to finally understand something. She grasped onto that like a lifeline and hastily promised, I knew you were still angry at him. George, I swear I'll never have anything to do with him again. He's nothing compared to you in my eyes. Only then did Willow finally come to her senses. The temporary thrill of something new could never compare to someone who had been there for you all along. Right in front of me, Willow put Makoto's contact details into her blacklist. I raised an eyebrow, wondering if she'd lost her mind. She had once been so infatuated with Makoto, and now, this sudden change in her behavior was beyond me. She asked, is this good enough for you now? Before I could respond, Makoto arrived. Clearly furious, he complained, Willow, where have you been all this time? I couldn't reach you, and now I find you here. He walked up to us. Makoto, as though asserting his claim, pulled Willow into his embrace. He said, did you block me? I can't send messages on WeChat. Right in front of me, Willow, gritting her teeth, broke free from his embrace and slapped him hard across the face. She scolded him. Who gave you the right to touch me? Makoto, we're just colleagues. I need you to leave me alone from now on. Her harsh words left Makoto momentarily stunned. He couldn't believe it and asked, Willow, how many times have we been together? You won't even let me hug you. Willow's face went as white as a sheet. Makoto added, George is already with Anna, so why are you bothering to hold on to him? He's not worth it. Willow's face turned crimson with embarrassment. This was the first time I had ever seen her use such a cold, piercing attitude toward Makoto. She shouted, get lost. Her fury was unmistakable. The welcome party ended, but Anna didn't ask where I had disappeared to for so long during dinner. It was only in the car ride home when she suddenly hugged me and kissed me fiercely, as though she was afraid that after seeing Willow, I might no longer need her. This time. I held her chin, feeling like a beast who had been holding back for far too long, as I kissed her passionately, never tiring of her lips. When the long kiss ended, her body went limp, like melted spring water, curled up in my arms. She breathed me in eagerly, and I carefully examined her, seeing her lips so red they almost looked like they were dripping with water. Inside me, a wave of desire stirred. This was the benefit of dating a more mature woman. It was thrilling. As our breathing slowed, I looked at the 100% unexplainable number floating beside her. My name gradually appeared next to it. I knew clearly that with Anna, I was driven by curiosity and attraction, not yet love. That's why the number appeared and disappeared, but it didn't matter. There was still plenty of time. A few days later. I don't know what method Anna used, but Makoto was exposed for leaking confidential company technology and was fired and sued. With a mountain of debt, he was left in ruins. I later heard that he went to work at some unknown small company, starting from the bottom and constantly watching his back. As for Willow, she also didn't show up for work after that. The last time I saw her was at a party. She was dressed provocatively, accompanying a bloated boss, only to be caught by the original wife, who dragged her to the ground and started a scene.